Coming up on today's show, I want to run through some of the top standouts so far through Browns OTAs. Now that 2 of the 3 weeks are in the books, I thought this would be a good time to let you guys know who has jumped out to me in a good way. Now, before we look at my first player, just a quick programming alert for the next few weeks over the summer. We're going to have live shows 2 times a week. Tuesdays, as it's always been, for 5 p.m. Eastern, and then we're going to add a Friday afternoon live show at 2 p.m. Eastern. And for each one of these days, we're going to have a Madden simulation for every Browns game up to this throughout the season. So we've already got week 1 in the books against the Cowboys. We'll have that video go out over the weekend. But come hang out with us twice a week. It's a really fun opportunity to engage with myself in a live platform. And you get to watch some Browns watch parties via Madden throughout the entire season. All right, let's get into my first OTA standout, which is quarterback Deshaun Watson. All eyes have been on Watson, of course, as he's coming back from his shoulder injury, and everything I've seen and heard is very, very positive about his rehab. So he threw in practice in front of the media on Thursday, and he had no issues displaying his velocity, his deep ball, everything you're looking for in a quarterback. Like, was it 100%? No. But for it being the end of May and football not being until September, he is definitely on a good track and a good pace to be ready, not just for NFL Week 1, but for the start of training camp. I mean, take a stroll down memory lane with me here, not a very pleasant one, of Deshaun Watson's injury timeline, going all the way back to the first time he got injured against the Titans in Week 3, and then he has the glenoid fracture against the Ravens in Week 10 it was, shoulder surgery November 21st, and fast forward to May 21st, and he's throwing on the first day of OTAs, where a lot of quarterbacks coming from a very unique injury, a glenoid fracture, there's not a precedent for this, might have taken a little bit of extra time in their rehab, but Watson did a great job apparently of attacking it head on and getting himself in a spot to be ready for the first day of organized team activities, let alone mandatory mini camp or even training camp. Now, his new offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey, had some great things to say about number 4, saying he threw the ball down the sideline, a vertical throw today, and that's one I hadn't seen from him a lot. We haven't pushed him to do it, so that was good to see. So I think the more he grows and feels comfortable with it, the more you'll start seeing those things get ramped up more and more. Overall, I'm very optimistic for Deshaun Watson in 2024 from a handful of perspectives. One, the injury recovery is going very well for him. He appears to be way ahead of schedule for, I think, where expectations would have been back in November when he got surgery for when he could start throwing. The guy had zip. He had velocity on his passes. He was going deep to Elijah Moore. And also, it doesn't all have to be perfect. Even healthy quarterbacks have some misfires in May because that's what May is for. But take the injury recovery side out of it. I'm just overall optimistic about Watson this upcoming season. Has it been all roses so far for him in Cleveland? No, it hasn't. But have there been some good moments that your average Joe and average NFL media pundit is looking over? Absolutely. I mean, just think about the last time we saw Deshaun Watson, right? His 2 games against the Cardinals and the Ravens. Guy threw for 432 yards, a couple of touchdowns to go along with it. He was perfect in the second half against the Baltimore Ravens. Deshaun Watson, those last 2 weeks that we saw him, was balling out. I mean, he was what the Browns had been looking for in their quarterback, right? So there's a lot to be excited for about Watson's return, and you can put me in the camp of I think he's going to have a really strong 2024 season. I've been saying it for a long time, and I'm not going to change my mind. So with that all being said, pick a quarterback for me. Would you rather have Deshaun Watson this year or Russell Wilson? Just live in this hypothetical for me with a moment. Personally, I'll go with Deshaun Watson. I know Russell Wilson is probably a little bit more of a stable selection, but watching him the last 2 years in Denver looked like just a completely different quarterback than what we saw in Seattle. And I'm not sold on Russell Wilson continuing even a little bit of success he had last year to a brand new team and coaching staff in Pittsburgh. So I'll take Watson over Wilson for 2024. Second standout from OTAs, wide receiver Elijah Moore. was not present for the first week of OTAs, which, by the way, there are a lot of veteran players not there. Amari Cooper, Joel Petonio, Dalvin Tomlinson. I mean, they definitely earned the right to skip voluntary workouts a little bit more than Elijah Moore, probably. But he returned for OTAs this past week, and he looked really good when the Browns had the media come over on Thursday. The funny thing about OTAs is you only get a couple of days to actually see them for your own eyes or through the media's perspective and the beat reporters and whatnot, and you have to draw big opinions and conclusions coming out of it. But the day we saw Elijah Moore was a great day because he was hauling in nice deep throws from Deshaun Watson. He was looking sharp. He was running great routes. I was really optimistic and encouraged by what we saw from Elijah Moore. Not that we needed to see a whole lot from him. Like last year was probably a little bit on the slight underwhelming side for where we had preseason expectations for him to the way he ended the year, but still career best 640 yards. Just really missing the touchdowns from last season, only 2. Now, Elijah Moore talked about the Browns' offense for 2024. Here's what he said. I just feel like it's going to be a lot more explosive. That's what comes to my mind when you have players like Jeudy and Cooper. It's super exciting to line up alongside and with these guys, and I just think that having Dorsey, someone who's an extravagant guy like him, you look at him and you can just tell he loves football. The Browns wide receiver room is going to look slightly different with the addition of Jerry Jeudy, but it's still got a lot of the main pieces from last year. Cooper, Moore, Cedric Tillman, David Bell, hopefully taking a nice leap forward in their respective next seasons. But the big three, of course, Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, and Elijah Moore. Cooper coming off the best back-to-back seasons in his NFL career. Jerry Jeudy had a mild 758-yard season, 2 touchdowns, but I never felt like he was a really good fit for the way Russell Wilson likes to run an offense. You go back to Wilson's time in Seattle, and you think about the big plays he had, and it always involved a deep ball to Doug Baldwin or Tyler Lockett. And Jerry Jeudy is a guy that wins at the line of scrimmage and needs the ball in his hands as soon as possible. That's what made him so effective at Alabama. And hopefully the Browns will better lean into that skill set of Jeudy's than the Broncos did. But I am drunk on the wide receiver Kool-Aid for Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore, and we don't even have to talk about Amari Cooper because we know how good Coop is. But I really think this wide receiver room for the Browns is, without a doubt in my mind, top 10 and probably closer to 5 than number 10. Especially with like the Bengals, for example, having a little bit of drama with T. Higgins. They were always number 1 with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd. All of a sudden, they go from having those 3 guys for a couple of years to maybe just 1, depending on what happens with T. Higgins. So I think the Browns wide receiver room is going to be stacked. It's going to be awesome this upcoming season. Because they've also got Jerry Jeudy, who, when the Browns traded for him, like the fan base was pretty optimistic about, or not optimistic, pretty excited about the trade, I should say, especially for what it cost. Just a 5th and a 6th. And sure, he has not reached the 1,000-yard mark that we use to grade wide receivers as good or bad. But man, he got close in 2022. And yes, there are things that Jeudy needs to work on his own end, but I still feel like a big reason why he wasn't maybe as successful as you'd expect a 15th overall pick to be in Denver was because of the constant turnover at quarterback, head coach, and offensive coordinator. And he still wasn't bad. Like, I think that just gets misconstrued. We're going to say that a guy with 972 yards and 6 touchdowns was a bad wide receiver. No, he was not at all. Next player that's jumped out to me at OTA so far is Cedric Tillman, the second-year man now out of Tennessee. Had a really strong showing at OTAs on Thursday in front of the media. And just the overall buzz coming out of Berea is Cedric Tillman looks locked in. The guy looks dialed in. He looks like he's made some really big strides from his first year into his second year, and that's expected. Like, the NFL may be one of the biggest jumps from college to the pros compared to other leagues. Man, I'm not ready. NBA, I don't know. We can have that debate another day. But the point is, Tillman in his rookie year saw some good moments and then definitely, wanted a little bit more from the third-round pick. Only 21 grabs, 224 yards. But I feel like Cedric Tillman is on a great collision course with a breakout season in year number 2. Now, before we get to the rest of my standouts from OTAs, if you want to get yourself some new Browns gear, go to chatsports.com/CLE Polo, and you can get this Brownie the Elf Polo. I put the link for you in the comments and description of today's video, so go check it out if you have not already. Fourth standout from OTAs is the rookie, Mike Hall Jr., which definitely says a lot. If a defensive player on the line of scrimmage is jumping out to you when there is no contact and it's basically flag football. I still feel like Mike Hall is probably in line for a bit of a redshirt freshman season with the Browns just because they have so many bodies on their defensive line. But the overall, buzz and word on the street is this Mike Hall guy is looking really fast and really quick. And once the pads come on, we're going to see that explosion come through. Now, the reason why I feel like he's probably a redshirt candidate for his first year in the NFL is twofold. One, the Browns have a lot of bodies at defensive tackle. But two, look at Mike Hall's listed weights through the last 3 years from Ohio State to the Combine to the Pro Day. Now, colleges always love to fudge the numbers a little bit on guys' heights and weights, but we can assume it's just at least somewhat in the ballpark of these numbers. But we do know these two numbers are absolutely correct. At his Pro Day, he came in at 299 pounds. At the Combine, just a few weeks before his Pro Day, 290. So picked up 9 pounds, and I don't think it was 9 pounds of like McDonald's drive-through. I think it was 9 good pounds of solid muscle being added. 2023, Ohio State had him listed at 280 pounds. His first real season with the Buckeyes after being a redshirt freshman in 2021 came in at 285 pounds. So the guy has been a bit of a yo-yo when it comes to his weight. And I feel like once he gets to the Browns, or now that he's gotten to the Browns and gotten to the NFL, they're going to try and stabilize that, right? Find a good weight for him to be successful, figure out what his role is going to be on the defensive line. And so that's why I think Mike Hall is probably in line for a bit of a redshirt freshman season with the Browns. You know what I mean? It's one of the fun storylines to watch for, as the Browns didn't have a first-round pick, so this is kind of their first-round pick. But I think for Hall, his rookie season, it would be very beneficial for him to just kind of figure out, all right, where am I going to be at when I'm at my best, and what weight is that going to look like, and what's that role going to look like for me? And then the first reason, like I mentioned, is the Browns' defensive line, it's stacked and loaded, right? You've got Dalvin Tomlinson, Shelby Harris, Quentin Jefferson, Maurice Hurst, 4 guys Cleveland has signed in free agency the last 14 months. So they clearly have an interest in putting the guys that they paid a good chunk of change to on the field. So for Hall, learn from these veterans, figure out what the best playing weight for him is, and then 2025, when Quentin Jefferson and Maurice Hurst are gone because they're on 1-year contracts, Shelby Harris is on the final year of his contract. I think we see Hall probably take a bigger step forward in 2025. Now, what is your claim to fame draft pick for the Browns you were right on? Whether it's good or bad, you knew the moment that pick was made that was either going to be a great pick or an awful pick. Even at my young age of whatever I was when Brandon Weeden was selected, I knew that's not going to work very well. The guy is going into a nursing home soon, and you're using a first-round draft pick on him. Hard to disagree. So let me know what pick you were right on or wrong, or right on whether it's good or bad. Loved the Nick Chubb selection the moment that was made. Fifth and final standout from OTAs, I'm going to go with Jameis Winston. If I've got Deshaun Watson in here as a standout, it only seems right that I've got Jameis in as well, since Jameis is more or less the starting quarterback throughout all of OTAs. He has been the number 1 QB when it comes to 11-on-11 walkthroughs, 7-on-7 drills. He has been the first quarterback with the offense every single time that opportunity has popped up, because they're not pushing Watson right now early in the spring practices. So Jameis has done a really good job of running the offense, and the Browns should be encouraged by that, because it's important in this modern day and age to have 2 good quarterbacks on your roster. Winston, of course, spent the last 4 seasons in New Orleans, where he didn't really get a whole lot of opportunity to start and play. He opened up the 2021 season as the starter, tore his ACL, comes back, and Andy Dalton and Derek Carr kind of take over as the starting quarterback. So the last time we saw Jameis as a true starter was in 2019 when he gave us a season we'll never forget. He joined the 30 for 30 club. 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions, 5,100 yards. I think he even led the NFL in passing that year with 5,100 yards. I wonder if any teams ever had two quarterbacks who led the NFL in passing on the same roster at the same time. That just popped in my head right now. But the Browns should know from previous history, this is not a franchise that has had a lot of success with one quarterback starting the entire season. Since the return in 99, it's only happened 3 times. Tim Couch, Baker Mayfield, and back-to-back seasons. Every other year, as we all know, there has been a rotation at the quarterback position for one reason or another. In fact, I looked from 2021 to present, and 75% of teams have had their starting quarterback miss 4+ games in a single season in the last 3 years. 24 out of the 32 teams have had to go to one or two different quarterbacks to make up 4+ games that their starter has missed. I mean, just think about it. We're not even talking about flip of the dice or flip of the coin. You may or may not have to go to your backup for a good amount of time. 75%, 3/4 of the league has missed their starter. In fact, if you're curious, what are the lucky teams? There are only 2 teams, by the way, that have had one quarterback start every single game since 2019. If you want to pause the video, I'll give you some time to think about it. Think about also teams that have had to, not had, but have had the luxury, I should say, of resting their starter in week 17 or 18, because they would be excluded from this. The 2 teams are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Buffalo Bills. Jameis didn't miss a start in 2019. Tom Brady didn't miss a start, and Baker didn't miss a start. And then for the Bills, Josh Allen has not missed a start since 2019. So the Browns hopefully will be, well, not will be, they are being wise by having good quarterbacks on their roster, because you don't want to ever envision the day the starter goes down. But the reality is, for 75% of the teams, the starter not only went down, but he missed 4 games too. All right, let's pick a card to wrap up the show. I've got producer Reed hanging out with me this Friday. Reed, which card do you want to go with?
Let's go with 2 of hearts.
2 of hearts? All right, I'm going to go with the 6 of clubs. You weren't too far off. 3 of diamonds. 3 of diamonds. All right, that will do it for us on today's show. Hope you enjoyed our episode. We're going to sign off and see you all later.